If we move to the fourth string as a starting point for this same concept, we can trace the G major scale. This note is G on the same fret. Now I'm on the fourth string, fifth fret. We'll trace that scale up the neck, and we have from this starting point, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and a half step. And that's a G major scale. Now, those notes are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. The F sharp is necessary just to retain the order of half steps and whole steps starting on a different note than C. Again, the piano keyboard reveals most of this very clearly. So when we start to build the structures of these triads, we start with this structure for the fourth, third, and second strings. Fifth fret, fourth fret, third fret is a major triad shape. To turn that into minor, we lower the middle note. That requires a little bar here under my first finger. Now we take the minor structure and we lower the top note of that three-note group, and we wind up with this. So major, lower the middle note, it becomes minor. From minor, we lower the top note, it becomes diminished. And we just apply those as we go up the neck the same way we did in C major. We have a major on the first note of the scale, minor on 2, minor on 3, major on 4, major on 5, minor on 6, diminished on 7, and we're back to major on 1. When we add the top interval to create the next level of structure, which is the 7th chord, our interval on this top string that we added, just like we did on the first string, the top string now is our second string. So the distances were a 5-fret span and a 4-fret span. And for 1 and 4, we had the longer span. The 7 diminished also had the longer span. So here's the major with the top note added, minor on 2 with the top note added. That's only the 4-fret span. 3, also the 4-fret span. We're to our 4-note, or to our fourth triad, our 4 triad. And that one has the stretch, 5, back to the 4-fret span. Our 6th chord, the 4-fret span. Our 7 diminished, and there's that stretch again, and we're back home. So again, the longer span was on 1, 4, and 7. And 2, 3, and 6 all had the shorter span. They were all minor, but the 5 chord also has that shorter span between the top 2 notes when we add that extra note on top of the triad. You may have noticed that in G major we had some common triads that were also in C major. When we got to the 4 chord, that was C major. We used C major on these 3 strings in the C major group. So what we do on guitar typically, and I think we do this without thinking much about it, we don't typically think linearly to span one string or to cover one string for an entire key. I think that's the easiest way to see it on guitar. I still think the piano is even easier to see that. However, what we do on guitar typically is when we get to a certain point, we'll take the notes that are up the neck and move them back underneath on the next higher string. So these 3 notes, the first 3 notes of our G major scale, when we go here, we can put that note back underneath. And so what we're kind of doing on guitar is taking linear concepts and just sort of folding them up so they fit into a position. And that makes some of the interval content a little less obvious. Switching strings makes it so it's not so easy to see whole steps and half steps, or the intervals that are when we combine whole steps and half steps. You do get used to what those intervals are and you start to understand them. But just for, again, this basic theory idea, kind of commit the shapes to memory and just use the shapes. So we may go from G major to A minor to B minor. That's 1, 2, and 3 in G major. And I'm going to put my 4 chord up here. And my 5, 6. Here was our 7 diminished. And here's, so these these 5 chords, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 are also right here. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. Now, if we want to apply these, I've set up in my loop pedal here a moon dance style vamp. It's basically an A minor chord. It's these 3 chords literally, A minor, B minor, and C. But all of those triads that I'm playing on just 3 strings are happening with an A bass note underneath. It's basically an A. You can hear that I'm kind of trying to create a walk type bass line in this loop. So please forgive the loop. It's just something I can use here to show how we can use these triads. So even though I know which triad is happening when, I'm sort of thinking of the whole thing as just being in a key. A minor, B minor, and C are in the key of G major. So I'm going to use those triads and some of the stretched or upper structure. These are 7th chords, major 7, minor 7, and so on. I'm going to use those kind of randomly, but I know that the family of chords I'm playing over fits into G. I know that all of these structures that I've kind of mapped out on the fretboard are in the key of G, so I can just mix and match them to suit. And sometimes we just like the sound of some, and sometimes we don't. That's why we have ears, and you'll figure out which ones you like, and you'll use them again. So here's kind of the way it's going to sound.